in KwaZulu-Natal. This is where the ANC also launched its campaign in 2019, trying to win the hearts of the voters, and KZN is a battleground as well. And with us in studio to also talk about the significance of this moment 30 years on, and how South Africa right now is looking at various political parties. The landscape has changed when it comes to the political parties, and whether or not they're going to be making promises that speak directly to their hearts and minds. And to try and make sense of all of that, we're speaking to Dr Lubna Ndavi, who is a senior lecturer in political science and international relations at UKZN. We also have our own politics editor, Mzwandile, who are joining us for this conversation. Thank you so much to you both for your time. I'll start with you, Dr. Ndavi. One of the things that is very clear is that while we are seeing various, manifestos, various political parties that are going to be tabling their own promises to the voters, the tone here needs to also be slightly different, because this is the governing party. They've had the chance to govern the country. So certainly there's a whole lot of pressure on them as they deliver this election manifesto.
Oh, certainly. I mean, basically the ANC really is under pressure, because it has to ensure that it keeps the confidence of its voters and its supporters. It has come under immense criticism over the last 30 years for service, delivery failures. It has really, seen a lot of challenges that it has to now deal with, and it's talked about its process of renewal. So in terms of what it actually speaks about in this manifesto, it has to actually show that it is working to make the changes, and that it is serious in terms of the concerns of the electorate. And the electorate have raised these concerns: basic water and electricity access issues, potholes on the roads, crime, corruption. The list is endless. So there's a lot of things that the ANC has to speak to, and it has to convince its electorate that it is actually seriously dealing with it, especially corruption, and that the voters can trust it and give the ANC their vote, so that they can continue being the ruling party.
And Mzwandile, the KZN becoming quite a huge focus, the battleground, various political parties looking to make inroads. You listen to what EFF leader Julius Malema had to say, saying that I want you to go out and get an outright majority. You have somewhat of an arrangement with the IFP and the DA there. You're seeing a little bit of tones of an understanding. But let's look at, the province of KwaZulu-Natal, its complexities, and where it finds itself in the country right now.
Well, thank you very much, Bongiwe, and a very good morning to the viewers out there. One of the issues that make KwaZulu-Natal important is the numbers. Remember, this election is about the numbers. You look at Gauteng and you look at KZN. So those two provinces have the biggest numbers. So going into this election, for you to win this election, you need to get people out there to go and vote. So then it makes sense that you come to a province that will be able to give you those numbers. If you look at other provinces like Limpopo, Eastern Cape, and perhaps Mpumalanga as well, so the ANC would feel very safe there. But given the challenges that are happening here in terms of the contestation, in fact, I was talking to some of the colleagues to say, before the actual launch of these manifestos, we understand that even the Democratic Alliance had planned to launch its manifesto here in KZN, maybe not necessarily at Moses Mabhida. So why is that? Because they see the potential in terms of them being voted by a number of people here. So you are going to have 4 big parties being launching here. But of course, with these 3 coming here, so there was that change. The reason is specifically, Bongi, because they have the numbers, and given the political fluidity of the current situation, so it makes it perhaps easier for those who think they can slice it to do it. The EFF had its biggest growth in this province. And of course, earlier I heard you speak about the emergence of the new kid
the
on the
MK
block.
Party, yeah.
Yes. So if you look at all those factors, so you'd understand why the contestation will be so huge here.
And Mzwai, as we were talking just now, we're seeing visuals on our screens of, the Women's League. And in the lead up even to this moment, the structures themselves had to undergo quite a lot of changes, had to undergo quite a lot of reconfiguration. But has it been felt by some of the branches on the ground? Because even in their January 8th statement last year, they were talking about the fact that they're focusing on the branches. But have the branches felt the impact of these structures?
I think to some extent they have, because what it has done, was that there is some stability from the point of view of these structures or of these leagues. I mean, before then, so you had no structure in the league, whether it's the youth league or the women's league or even the veterans league. So what you have been able to do was that at least some semblance of stability has been restored. So then it's up to them. But interestingly, the structure, because we're here in KZN, the women's structure here in KZN, so is still in question. You know, there are issues amongst themselves. But I guess, given that they are now focused on the elections, the differences will be put aside, and then that's what they are going to do and move on, because you cannot afford to go to such a heavy battle divided, because if that's the case, clearly you will be defeated.
You talk about a heavy battle. I was listening to Tembing Kadimeng Doc speaking to our colleague Nhlanhla Kgatlana Mzwandile saying that this is a war, and as you go into a war, you need to bring out your biggest guns. But this is a political party in its manifesto in 2019 was promising, among others, to create 275,000 jobs per year. And its focus then was to grow the South African economy. Yet here we are. And one could also say the factor of COVID-19 and geopolitics also entered the fray. But Doctor, would you say that before COVID-19 hit, before South Africans found themselves with the sluggish economy, were they always on track to deliver on their promises made in 2019?
I mean, I think that market forces and things that are beyond the control of the government sometimes come into play. But I think that, certainly COVID did have a major impact. And of course, it meant that people were not able to go to work, people lost jobs. And then the recovery period after that, took quite a long time. So effectively, what it meant was that the ruling party and the government faced a lot of challenges. But I think that the goals that they had outlined in terms of trying to, try to create those jobs, that was certainly on track. And it's a case of really how does one, government is supposed to create the environment for jobs to be created. It's not necessarily the case that they create the jobs, all by themselves. The sort of private sector and other sectors have to also play their part. So it's a collective process. But I think government has to actually now look at the situation very seriously. We have a very slow growth rate, and that is a serious problem. So job creation is a major issue that they have to deal with on their manifesto. But in terms of looking back, they could have perhaps achieved those objectives had it not been for COVID and some of the other challenges. Remember, there were riots that also happened in 2021. There were floods in KZN, and so many things have happened. This is not to, of course, excuse the fact that maybe those targets were not met, but those challenges were in place, and one has to take those factors into account.
Doctor, and I'm going to ask us just to pause for a second. We need to check in with Samgele. And of course, Samgele, there's quite a lot of focus from the people on the stands who are hoping to hear, how the country is going to possibly be charted a way forward through the lens, that is, of the African National Congress, because a number of political parties are making a litany of promises, and today is likely to be no different, as the ANC will probably be taking stock of where things were in 1994 up until now.